Hi, I'm Deanna. Are you ready to ditch the I'm not good enough story and start rebuilding from a place of worth? Each week, we dive into the messy middle of transformation, real stories of reinvention, career pivots, and people who rewrote their identity and their lives. I am not here to sugarcoat. I'm here to wake you up to what is possible. So if you're ready to reclaim your power and build the life that feels like home, you're in the right place. Welcome to Worthy and Rewritten. Super excited about today's episode. I'm here with Katherine Flynn, and we're going to talk about taking a leap of faith in moments when life throws you a really big curveball and you take it and you run with it and you build something amazing out of it. So welcome, Katherine, to the show. I'm excited for this.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a big journey I took, so I'm happy to share it with people.
Yeah, and so I don't want to ruin the story for you because this is your story, but there's I know some big information from you, and there was a pivotal moment in your life where this journey started. Yeah,
Yes.
can you start?
So, yeah, I can definitely start there. So, I had always had this knowing that, I was following the corporate path. I was doing jobs that I enjoyed, that I liked. I was traveling a lot. I was supporting people in their careers. And I always knew that that was going to have to change someday. But like everyone else, I kind of kept pushing it off. I'm like, no, it'll happen later on. I can do it, as a retirement thing. I can always, shift into that. And so one day, I noticed things were getting very difficult. I was going through a relationship that was ending. I was having a lot of issues at work. It was more stress, added responsibility. It was just like everything was kind of bubbling up. And so I kind of lived in this space for several months and just thinking, what's happening? Like, what do I need to do differently? How do I need to work harder? How do I need to shift priorities? Really kind of giving everything I had into, my work life and trying to pick up the pieces of my personal life, just trying to see where it was. And at one point, my mom had called me and said, I don't know what you're doing, but you're going to have a heart attack at some point or cancer or some massive thing. Like
Oh,
your
wow.
stress level is at the top of the top. And of course, in the state of mind I was in, I was like, I know, but there's nothing I can do. So I just kept shifting and I just kept pushing. And then one day I got into a car accident at work and I heard this little voice inside me say, are you done yet? And that was a moment where I was like, okay, like, what am I going to do? And so that was the moment of my life is not going in the direction I want it to go. No matter what I do and how much work I put in, it still seems like it's just, I can't keep my head above water. And so the next week I quit my job and it was my dream job.
Yeah, I was curious, what did you do for work?
Yeah. So I was an operations manager for an operations care company. And so it was I loved it. I loved being in that area. I loved the travel I did. I love supporting people, helping them grow into their roles, seeing them be promoted, move over to other offices, really jump around. And it was a great company. I mean, it was all about the people. It was all about, how we can support patient care and employees, but it just wasn't in alignment. And so it really kind of hurt in that moment to go, I need to leave. And so as I quit, I cried to my boss and said, for my own just personal health, I have to do this and realize that I need to take a major shift. I need to take a major directional change. And then it took me about 3 months. I worked for a while for them till they could get things figured out because this was unexpected for all of us and help them kinda get there. And then it was in December that I said, "Okay, I'm done," and I left for the holidays. And that started my journey of figuring out who I was, what I was gonna do, what did I love to do, and what would make me happy and get me out of bed in the morning.
I love what you just said, where you start with, like, who am I? Figuring out who we are, again, is, like, the foundational information that you need in order to make a pivot like that. Do you mind if I ask about the knowing? And I know you've described, like, you just were unhappy, but you said in the very almost the first sentence today is, there was this knowing.
Yeah.
What is that? What does that feel like? And how could somebody, if they're listening right now, how would they know that there's that knowing and that whisper coming through?
Yeah. For me, it was just this sense inside of me that I knew that something else was going to be coming down, that I knew there was another direction for me, but it didn't fit in with what my mind thought would work. The same way that a lot of people can have, a knowing of, like you'll call it intuition, like something could happen today. Mine was at a, more of a distant there going, you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna do that. And so I always tell people when they get that knowing or when things feel off and you can't signify why it's off, you can't give a reason for it or specifics. That's when you know that there's something coming, that there's a change coming. And so, as much as I tried to push off this shift in me, and I took it probably as far as it could before everything kind of blew up, but I took it in that way to go, okay, I need to, really figure out who I am because living life stressed out, not fully happy. I was tired all the time. I was kind of just trudging through life. But if you looked at the boxes that society says we need, I had them all.
Yeah.
I
So
career.
on paper, right? Check, check, check. Oh,
Yeah,
I hear this all the time. Yeah,
yeah,
on paper it looks so good, but external and internal is so different.
it is. Yeah. And so that's when I just had to take that leap of faith and say, I'm done. And the journey I went on for those, 4 or 5 years were challenging. Some of it was challenging, but it really helped me see who I am. Who am I as a human, as a being? And what is it that I want to get out of life? And how can I kind of reset myself to say, these are the things that I love. These are the things I loved about my career, about my job, about who I worked with. And how can I transfer those skills into my life so that I can continue the things I love, maybe let go of the things that I didn't love so much.
And I love that. And okay, now that this car accident was this like was it a big one? Like what gave you a wake up moment? Was it more this realization of, hey, you've been in survival, like mom said, you're gonna have a heart attack, something's bad here's gonna happen. Like are we talking a fender bender that made you go, hey, okay, you're not focused, Catherine. Take a moment, or was it like this life altering moment of
From a physical standpoint, it was a hit. It was a hit and run. I got hit from behind. I got rear-ended when I was at a stoplight. Physically, wasn't severely injured. I had to go and be cleared to fly home. I had some soft tissue, muscle damage, but it was nothing severe by any means, compared to what other people, when you compare it to other car accidents. But what it was mainly was it was that point where it almost like broke me. It was that point of everything that could happen that they were trying to, I was trying to be pushed into, okay, let's make a change, let's make a shift. Everything had been happening and I wasn't listening. I'm saying,
it
no,
was
I can do this. Yeah.
it was your messenger.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah. And it was just that point of just, I think emotionally, it was more broken than anything because I'm going, I can't continue this way anymore. And yeah, so I would say it was more of an internal hurt than an external hurt, but still, made me make that shift.
Yeah. And so more psychological. So it wasn't this life like altering, okay, you almost died moment. It was more like, hey, this is your message. Listen, you're not listening to all the other signals I'm giving you. So here you go. Is this loud enough?
Yeah.
Are you going to change or what? Make that
Right.
change. Yeah. And okay, so when you started, who were you? Who did you start to realize when you paused for a moment and started to discover?
Yeah, who I was. Well, I had to really look. I did a lot of internal work and had to look internally because what I came to find out was that so many things that I believed, that I thought, that the way I was, they weren't necessarily mine. They were things that we were told. Like, I said before, it looked great on paper. But I'm like, but do I believe in that on paper? Is that what I need to make myself happy? Is that what I need to feel successful and fulfilled in life? And so it started kind of this journey of what do I need to let go of? What do I have been set inside me? What have people told me? And how can I really shift that to figure out where I am? So I spent a lot of time, on my own, a lot of time traveling to just different places around the country and world and just saying, okay, what do I need to get out of this? What can I learn? What can I really tap into to figure out who I am and what I want to do with my life and what am I meant to do with my life here on
Yeah,
earth?
finding that purpose.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So what is that? What are you meant to do? What is your person? What did you discover?
So I discovered that I am meant to support people on their journeys to find their own purpose. That I the things that I loved most about my corporate job were I loved training. I loved supporting people. I loved working as a team. I love seeing people get promoted and seeing them kind of like rise up and be the best person they could. And I took that, in my own life to say, okay, how can I build something off of that? How can I say, this has been my journey. This is what I've learned. And these are the tools you can take to implement that in your own life. These are the things that you can do. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where I've come out of it at. And I still say every day is a learning moment for me. Every day I still might be learn something about myself or, connect in. This past week, it was like, you got to relax more. And I thought that was very odd because I consider myself, I meditate, I do yoga, I spend a lot of time reading, but I realize my mind is always running. It's always thinking, it's always planning, it's always strategizing. And at some point, I just have to shut the mind down. And so I tell, clients and people that I come in contact with or talk to, like sometimes you're going to continue to learn something all the time about yourself. And sometimes it's just about listening to that internal voice or that guide or intuition to say, okay, I need to make maybe another slight shift.
Well, we're forever changing. We're never the same person from year to year. So, of course, we have to continuously be checking in. Am I still in alignment? Yeah, that's who I was last year, but have I changed? Have I evolved through my experiences, through learning, through self exploration? So, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, I love that you say that, that you connect with that because I work with so many people that are like, but this is who I am. It's like, well, but who you were before is not now. And I would look at every decade as a shift, even in myself. I'm like, okay, the person I am now is not the same person I was in my 30s or my 20s or my teens. And I see that in people. It's like we need to shift and recognize that and recognize it in others. The person you knew 20 years ago is not the same person that they are now.
Absolutely. So, you work with elements. Is this
Mm,
correct? Can you tell us a bit about that? What that
yeah.
means?
Absolutely. So through my journey, I realized that I could tap into nature, that I could tap into the energy that nature provided. And so, I would go into an earth-based place. And I did this through my travels where I figured out with earth was all about my foundation. You can really ground into the earth. You can really like set yourself into it and really kind of root down. I found I was someone that I didn't have roots. I kind of sort of did, but I was always traveling. I had moved around a lot. I hadn't lived where I grew up in years and years. My parents were gone from there. And so there really weren't roots there anymore. And so I figured out that I really needed to figure out to root down and who I was. And so with each of the elements, with water, air, fire, and then I looked at the celestial and ether as the fifth element, I really said, what can each of these support me in? So, when I'm feeling like I need more of that spark, more of that transformation, I'll lean into fire. And so it's funny, anytime I feel that, I end up going and visiting my parents in Phoenix. There's something that comes up that goes, oh, why don't you take a trip down there? And I know because it's about that fire energy that I'm looking for because the desert holds so much fire.
How do we know when we need that? So, how do you know when you're leaning a little bit more fire in your life? What does that feel like?
Yeah. So it feels like when you understand the elements and what they do, you'll start to notice which one you're lacking. So earth is about foundation, and then water is more about cleansing, clearing, and energy and flow. Then you have air that's all about the spreading, the life force energy, the balance. Where are you out of balance in your life? And fire is about the transformation. So when you look at where you're at in life, you can see which of those aspects maybe aren't quite aligned or maybe you're missing. So I find I need a lot more fire energy because I'm more of a go with the flow person, because I really shift into that. I need more of that fire. But for someone else, they might feel like, you know what? I am never grounded. I am always, moving, going. Maybe they work in an industry like they're, a flight attendant or a pilot where they're always in the air. And so they say, I need more earth. So then they're going to say, okay, how can I ground down? Do I spend more time outside, put my feet in the grass? Do I go to the mountains? Something that will really ground down. And I've noticed people naturally, without even recognizing it, will tend towards that element that they need. People will tell me, I don't have a career home balance. My personal life to my work life is so out of balance. And then they'll
This is
say,
a good one. This is the
yeah,
majority of people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, well, what do you do just to decompress? Most of them will say something to the effect of, I love to sit outside and read a book, or I love to go and, hit balls with my son or play golf or do something that's outside where the air is going, or, drive, my motorcycle or ride a bike, but it's always where the air is there. So it allows for that air element to tap into them. And they're not even really recognizing it yet but they're doing what they need to have that element support them.
Right. Interesting how you naturally navigate towards that, right? You
Mhm.
you don't even know you're doing it or what you're needing or anything, but that's
Yeah.
very interesting. I've heard a little bit about this stuff, but this is also so interesting. The grounding really resonates. I mean, I think we can all understand a piece of that is like we all need some grounding in our life where we can all be in that go, go, go.
Mhm.
The fire one, that's that energy. Again, sorry, I know you explained it a bit, but can you just give me I don't know why that's resonating with me a lot right now. It's like, how do you know when you need that fire? What would I be craving? What would I be seeing in myself or feeling? Is it
Yeah.
my feeling like yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah, no, when you feel like you need more fire, and because this keeps calling to you, you probably need a
I
little
need
more.
more fire.
That's why you're asking. When you notice you're lacking in that fire, you're missing that ignition of that spark inside of you. So I always say we all have that spark inside of us, and that spark is what kind of is always glowing and gets us going. But when can you turn that flame up? When can you really fuel it? And so many times you'll notice people will say, oh, I got out of bed and I'm just trudging along. I'm just going, or I really need a change in life. I'm tired of the same routine, and they'll need that fire to help transform it, because fire, it it is death and rebirth. So,
Right.
transforms. If you light a candle, that candle's not going to stay the same size or shape for very long. And so it's constantly moving. So that is when you need that change in life, that is when you would lean more into fire. So I find it's when people get very routine, when they don't feel that, oh, I'm ready to go. That flame isn't going, that spark isn't going, "Oh, yeah, let's do this," that excitement level. There's just more of that mundaneness.
Yeah, so you're feeling mundane, you're feeling a little bored, you don't have any motivation. Okay, so now leaning in to fire. So how do I do that next? So, okay,
Yeah,
I know I need fire. Now
yeah.
what?
So now no, so now it's like, go and light a candle, go sit by a bonfire, go get in the sun. The sun is our biggest fire element we have. Just go be in the sun. That will allow for that fire element to come in. Anywhere you can be where you can feel the heat or that fire. So in the winter, when people say, well, it's cloudy, I can't be outside, the sun is so far away, go get in a sauna. You'll feel that heat as well. Go take a really hot bath. Even though there's water element there, the fire is what heats up the water. So you can play into these different aspects of it. So yeah, so pick whatever calls to you. And for everyone it's to be different.
Okay, so we got the earth, we got the grounding, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, like I said, everybody needs a little bit of that. I think everybody needs a little fire sometimes too, maybe not. But I think people can easily get stuck in that mundane and they say it's because as a therapist, it more comes in the form of I'm not feeling motivated, right? So
Mhm.
that would be okay. So we got earth, fire, water.
Water.
How do
Water.
we
Yes.
yeah. What would that look like?
So water is when you really think about what water does naturally. It cleanses. So water is when you need to get rid of maybe excess energy, when you need to get rid of something that doesn't serve you anymore. And water is all about the flow. So if you think about a boat on a river, it's naturally going to go where the current takes it. And if you're in that boat and you aren't fighting it, you're not saying, "Well, it's pointing me to this side, but I want to go over here." So you're paddling as hard as you can. Well, sometimes no matter how hard you paddle, you're not going to get over there because that's not where the flow wants you to go. So water allows for that flow, and it allows for that movement of the energy you have, because we know water is the biggest conductor of energy and electricity. And so it does the same thing for us, that you might need to get into that water. So I tell people, when you're feeling that like things are just misaligned, or there's something wrong, people do this naturally after a hard day. How many people go, I just need to go take a bath, or I just want to go take a shower, and you feel better. because that water is cleansing off all of that gunk that you picked up through the day, all of those thoughts, all of that energy, all of those things. It's really letting go of that. And so this is where you can lean into that. So by taking a bath, taking a shower, going to the pool, maybe it's just, washing dishes even and feeling the water on your hands, but just immerse yourself in that water element to let that kind of flow happen and to let go of what you don't need anymore.
That is so cool. It all makes sense. It all resonates for sure. Okay. Earth, fire, water,
Air.
air.
Yeah. So air I always call is that life force energy. We're all told in second grade, what do you need most to live? And we all go, water. Well, actually, it's air. And so, because we can't survive long without it. So I look at it as that life force energy, but it's also about balance. Our air has to be very balanced with what's in it. And it has to allow for us to continue that movement. So when you look at balance, I always take this back to when, what I mentioned before, of work versus personal life. Are you out of balance there? And how many people say, oh, there's so much happening at work. I spend all my time working, but it's about finding that balance, being in the air and utilizing that element. So a great one to do it is like breath work or some kind of meditation with breathing or yoga with breathing. Also standing out and being in the air, feeling the wind, so whether you ride a bike or go for a drive or something where it's constantly coming in. Even putting your window down in the car as you're driving will just help for that air movement and for you to feel that. And so, really working with that to find that balance. And you'll find that air is also the element that spreads. Where water is the flow, air spreads. You think about it, if you throw, a bunch of leaves up in the air is going to spread them, take them. And so allow for that to kind of spread your energy out, spread what you need out, whether it be your intention, your alignment, what you need to let go of, just let it spread out for people there. So that's when should really lean into air.
This is so cool. Okay. And we have one more?
Yeah, the fifth element, yes, which would be ether or celestial. And that is an element that obviously isn't earth based. It's not, part of earth, but it's part of who we are. It's our soul, it's our purpose, it's our direction of that spiritual being that is part of us. And so I always say that's the last element because that looks at where we came from, whether it be source energy, universal energy, God energy, however you want to look at it. But it's that part of us that's inside of us that is giving us that direction, that is expanding here, that we've inhabited these human forms for to learn and experience and grow. And it came in with that purpose. I always say our soul chose our parents, it chose our families, it chose where we were going to be born, some of our directions. And so it's about embracing that. And at times it's like you have to let your soul speak. You have to let it lead you where you need to go. Because as I learned last week, my mind runs all the time.
That's
And so
right.
sometimes, even though I'm very tapped into my purpose and my path, sometimes I have to say, okay, mind, we just need to close down a little bit. And now we're ready to move forward and let the soul lead the way instead of the mind talking for the soul. I want the soul to speak a little.
So important. It's always right. Our mind will tell us lies like crazy. It'll take us in all different directions.
Yep.
Okay, so how does one Mm. Yeah, like, especially in therapy, getting people to tap into their body and their intuition and there's that gut. Some people just cannot. So do you have a way how do you help people access that?
Yeah. So I always love meditation. And I know people say, well, I can't meditate or I get bored or my mind keeps running. And I always say, find something that helps you keep the mind busy, but lets your soul come through a little more. So I call it active meditation. So maybe you love to cook. And so just the movement of your hands and cooking. Maybe it's being out gardening, being outside. Maybe it's tinkering. Maybe you're a fixer of things. So it's something where your hands get busy and your mind is kind of knowing, okay, do this and this. And it just lets everything else kind of shut down. The same way people will say, I looked at the clock and it was 2 hours later and I don't know what happened. I was working on this project. And it's like, it's because it allowed for your mind to just focus on this, but it wasn't overrunning. It knew what it needed to do. And so I always say find those little things. And for people that say, I can't do it, my mind still runs all the time. A lot of times it's about just listening to what your gut says. Everyone calls it their gut reaction. I also call it your intuition. Mothers have, I say, some of the strongest intuition when they say there's something wrong with my child. I can't tell you what it is, but I know there's something wrong. Or maybe they got hurt at school and you said, what happened? And then you get the call, they fell at recess. And so they've got a scraped up knee. And you're like, I knew something happened. So it's listening to that internal little messenger in there, and that is how you can begin to rely on that gut reaction. And then there's a lot of different things you can do to really grow that intuition and work with it. But those are some of the first steps to just really kind of begin to trust it. Because, like you said, the mind is always going to run. The mind's going to tell you stories. It's the ego. It's meant to do that. It's here to keep us safe. It's here to protect us. But there's some things it needs to protect us from, like don't put your hand on a hot stove.
Yeah.
Very important to know. Don't approach a bear. That's a very important one to know. But there's other things that it's trying to protect us from that maybe it necessarily doesn't need to.
And as you're saying all these, I'm going through the 5, I'm feeling they're all very interconnected. Like, so even as you talk about the intuition and finding your purpose part and slowing down, I'm also feeling a sense of grounding. Like I know it's not in the earth though, but like as you're saying, okay, so go and do some dishes and be with yourself. So there's your water, right? I get a sense of grounding when I think of that, but I'm also thinking I'm slowing down to tap into my intuition and think about my purpose, like trying to shut off the mind. Like I'm feeling like they all
Mhm.
are intertwined here.
Yeah, they are because you're all connected to all of them. So I kind of look at it as okay, you've got Earth or Mother Earth, and they're just kind of like spires off of it that are coming from the central. So they're all part of it. And I even say water holds Earth because water holds minerals. It comes from the ground, it comes from Earth, or it's sitting on the ground. So yeah, they are all very much intertwined. It's just which one do you need a little more? Say, for example, you feel like you really need water and you're like, okay, I don't want to take a bath. I don't want to take a shower because that water comes to the ground. Maybe you say it's raining and you're like, oh, I want to go stand out in the rain. That's taking air and water a little more because it's coming from the sky, from air. So it's about just recognizing where it is, but you're completely right. They're all so intertwined. It's just the intention you put forth, how you see it, and just listen to that little voice inside of you to know, okay, I don't want, water this way, but I want it that way, and then try it there.
Yeah. So now I'm curious. Now I'm kind of going all a circle back to the beginning in terms of so there's this knowing that I'm not in alignment. I'm not really where I'm supposed to be. I am on paper, but not inside of me. But I'm just going in. I'm in survival mode. My health is at stake. I'm going, going, going. I have a car accident, and I realize, okay, hello, like wake up. Here's your, almost like a messenger. So you really recognize something has to change. How did you? So you said I started to just like self-discovery. Who am I? All of this. And so how did you find this, your new career, your new entrepreneurship?
Yeah, entrepreneurship, yeah. It was through a lot of testing. It was through a lot of, taking different classes, getting different certifications. And it was really about when I sat down and wrote out what do I love? What is my skill set? What do I have? And it really showed me where I needed to go because I knew, that I love supporting people. I love seeing them get hurt. I love training. I loved when I did training. I loved when I was talking to people, connecting. I was in sales for a while from an operations standpoint, but I love the relationship based of that. And so that's kind of where it led me to go, okay, these are my skill set. This is what I do. This is what I can support people with. This is where my knowledge base is. And that's kind of how it just kind of flourished and came forward. And I'll say it continues to shift. There's things where I'm like, oh, I have some interest in that. Like I started taking an astrology course and I didn't know why. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I just don't get it. I let it go. And then all of a sudden this new class came up and it all clicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I understand the elements. Now I can connect it back to astrology and, that tool and aspect. So it really allowed for me I just kind of let my soul lead the way and say, this is where you are. And what I do now might be a little different than what it is in 5 years, but I at least know this is the structure I have. And as I grow and develop, I know that as I support clients and as I support others, that they're going to shift as well. Because I always say, we always say like attracts like,
Yeah.
something we also learned when we were young in school. And so who I attract and who I bring into kind of my realm and supporting them is, they're also going to shift as I grow and change. But I've met some amazing people along the way, seen a lot of amazing transformations. And every time I kind of get giddy about it. I love it when people really feel that alignment and are willing to really kind of do the hard work and look inward and use the elements and say, okay, I'm ready to make a change and I'm ready to kind of stand up for myself and say, okay, this is the change I need to make. Whether it be something small where they feel it as big. I've had people say, they picked up a new hobby and they're like, "This hobby, I love it. I didn't know I enjoyed it so much." Someone who started making pottery. She's like, "I just love it." Well, her job didn't bother her as much anymore because when she would leave that a couple times a week, she would go and she would make pottery. And so she's like, work doesn't bother me anymore because she found that balance in life.
Right.
Sometimes
Okay.
it's not about what is your biggest pain point. It's about what do you need to add or subtract. And that pain point isn't going to bug you as much anymore.
I love that. So somebody might be thinking they need this total career transformation, but they don't. They actually just need that balance, something to balance out that energy of. Okay.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to, again, taking us right back to the beginning. What would be, who are the people that come to you? Like, what are they needing? Is it alignment? Is it self identity? Is it self discovery? Who are the people that are seeking you out?
It's a little bit of both. Usually it's people that are feeling something is off. They're saying, I know I need a shift. I know I need a change. And because, what I work with people on is so very grounded. And I really connect back in with like the druid energy and their ancient wisdom and what they always say about embracing life. They're finding that they need that sense of, I know something needs to change. I don't know what it is. And I'm ready for that. So the same way I have the checklist, I have a lot of clients saying, I have it all on paper, but there's something off. And so those are the people that usually will search me out. And I always say, that there's a reason why you had the sense of, I need to call her. I need to see what possibly she could help me with and really allow for that sense. And so, it's people of all different, ages, places in their life, where they're at. But you'll always say when you decide to work with someone or at least research, who they are, meet with them once, it's about saying, there's something that's aligning you to them. There's something that's resonating. And so is it that little voice inside or is it that mind going, well, look what she did. I need to go with her. But you need to listen to that little voice inside.
Okay, so I think if I was to summarize that, it's like I know there's a voice. It's telling me something. There's something in my gut. There's that. It's intuition. It's a whisper. It's my knowing. Whatever we want to call it. It feels different to everybody. I know there's something. I just don't know what it is yet. It's like I don't know which direction. It's like, yeah, I know my soul is calling for something else. I just don't know what that
Yeah.
is.
And that's where I say, okay, let's start journeying with the elements. Let's start looking at Earth first. Let's jot down what is your foundation? What is it that makes you who you are? And look at each thing. What are your beliefs? What are your ethics, your morals, what you were taught versus what you believe? And are there things that need to be let go of? Are there things that aren't, but if you have to look at your foundation, so I always use the example of a house in that foundation of a house, what are your four pillars? And then what makes the bottom of the house? What is that? And so when I ask people that and they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, start writing it down. And I'm like, what are your passions? What do you love to do? Mine was that I loved working with people. So that went in as part of my foundation. I love working with people. I love supporting people. I love teaching people. Those were all foundational things about me that I had to jot down. And so that's always the first step that I tell people is let's look at it from that standpoint and see. And then let's look at the bucket that you threw out, what
Yeah.
things that you dug out to put your foundation down that are laying there on the side now saying, okay, I don't need these. And maybe you might repurpose them. Maybe you might, use them for landscaping or use them for something else, but they're not part of your foundation of who and what you are.
I love even this first step because how many people really look at like those pillars of who I am. Yeah, that is so cool. Catherine, this is all so great. I think we can so much knowledge to incorporate into all of our life, just whether, and like you said, doesn't matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're in your 20s, just starting to figure it out. If you're 30, even, 50, as I'm turning 50, I'm thinking this is perfect for, the turning of that. You can insert this type of work into any age.
Yeah.
And so if there's somebody listening and they're like, okay, I really am resonating. I need a few of these elements, but I still don't understand or know where to start. Where's a good place to find you?
Yeah. Well, the first place to start would be on my website. It's thechannelcourse.com. And there I do offer a free, I call it a moment to connect session. And I just love to hear where you're at on your journey, see if that resonates for us, for me to support you, provide tools, provide things that may be beneficial, because I love seeing people get to where I am or find that alignment. So I would say that's the first place to start. And even if you just want to say, hey, book the sessions. Hey, I saw you on the show, I love just connecting with people.
Okay, so that's fabulous. I'll put that in the show notes. And I want to thank you so much for coming on here today. I learned so much from you. And just even in that conversation, I feel more grounded. It's very cool. Like just even as we talk about it, right?
Thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to share my story with the listeners, because it's one that is really set in me and has been a journey. But I always tell people I want other people to be able to get through their journey in a lot shorter time than what it took me.
Yeah. And I always love to say, like, listen to the whisper. If there's that knowing and whisper before it becomes a scream.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Worthy and Rewritten. If you enjoyed what you heard, please hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. I'm on a mission to help as many people as I can wake up their worth and build lives they don't need to escape from. So please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, if your gut has been screaming that there's more for you, listen to it. You're not too old, too late, or too far gone. You're right on time. See you next time.